The first stop on our field trip is this constructed wetland area, and those of you that have been to the Greenway will recognize where this is located. Just to put us in perspective here, this area is one of the lowest points in Boone, and this constructed wetland actually drains 30 acres of impermeable surfaces in Boone. So impermeable surfaces refers to things like sidewalks, roads, and rooftops. All of that water has to drain somewhere, and it comes to this location. If we look over here, beyond these trees, there is a very significant landscape feature, which is the New River, one of the oldest rivers on the planet. And when we start talking about watersheds a little bit later on in the semester, I will tell you more about the New River. But this is the constructed wetland, and I would like to show you this. I know I'm making a shadow. Let's see if I can do it so that you can see this interpretive sign that explains what's going on here. So stormwater runoff is one of the most significant contributors to water quality degradation in the U.S. because when the rain falls and the rain drains to locations, to low points, it's bringing with it all of the pollutants that are on the surfaces of roads, sidewalks, and rooftops. Pollutants like gasoline, oil, dust, dog poop, all kinds of things. And all of that ends up in our rivers, except for when we have structures like this. So some may say, this thing is ugly. I've heard that before from students. And it changes with the seasons. Right now, spring is just starting to begin here in the high country, and so there's not a lot of green in this wetland, but you can see that some of the cattails are starting to green up a little bit and will be growing taller. If you look around the banks, you'll see that a lot of the shrubs are starting to bud out now. But we're definitely in the early stages of spring. I want to draw your attention to this pipe here. This is the inflow pipe. There's actually two of them. These pipes bring that stormwater runoff from the 30 acres of Boone into this constructed wetland. The idea of this wetland is to serve as a filter for the water before the water enters the New River. And if we look at the other end of the wetland, which we can't really see very well right now, but it's back over near those pine trees, there is an outflow pipe. So once the water goes through this filtering system in the wetland, then any excess water will go into the New River. The town of Boone does monitor the water as it comes into this pond and as it exits the pond, and it has determined that this is a very effective filtering system for the stormwater runoff. So this is what I would call an elegant design. And why do I say it's an elegant design? Because it is actually functioning in many different ways. It is not just a stormwater runoff system. It is also an amazing habitat that supports a lot of biodiversity. You will find all kinds of critters living in here, all kinds of birds, but also amphibians like salamanders, frogs, really waking up. Another important thing to know about this wetland is that it's on the North Carolina bird trail, because it is such a effective habitat for so many different birds. So that's what I mean by elegant design, is that it's actually accomplishing many functions with this one structure. The other thing that I want to draw your attention to is the banks of this wetland. So obviously it's a depression that's been excavated out. It is not a natural wetland. It was made by machines and planted by people by hand. A lot of the vegetation that you see here was planted intentionally, because certain kinds of vegetation are beneficial to certain species. So a lot of the shrubs here, they like to be on the banks. Plants like the cattails that we see in the bottom of the pond, they like to have their feet wet all the time. So you'll see that certain plants are located at certain areas in the pond and around the pond. In the spring, the town of Boone will come out and eradicate, meaning pulling weeds by hand, eradicate the plants that are invasive. And as this becomes a more mature landscape, it becomes more important to do that. But they have started with beneficial plants, and largely that's what I'm seeing here. They also have a, you can see what's left of this little PVC pipe here. This doesn't look like it's functioning right now, but in the past, this has been a floating nursery. So the town of Boone has put young seedlings in there that are wetland plants, and they have grown them out to a more mature size, so that when they actually transplant them into the pond, they are better able to survive the transplanting process and do well. I think that's all I have to say about this. We're going to move on to our next location.